Welcome to This Grim Explainer. Today, we're going to act as your cynical guide through a beautifully dark, gothic fable. We're diving into a narrative of absolute decay, the story of the Lore Keeper and the Shadow Bard, which all takes place under the cold, unforgiving gaze of the great star of negation. Basically, we're stripping away all the comforting lies of history to look at the terrifying blankness underneath.
Before we really descend into the black sludge of the mire here, I want you to let this chilling accusation from the Shadow Bard just wash over you. He says, "You are playing a game of ruined telephone across the graves of everyone you have ever loved." Man, let that sink in for a second. It perfectly sets the tone for our exploration today of human memory, language, and the ultimate futility of historical preservation.
All right, let's get right into part one, the Star of Negation.
So picture this. We're at a ruined archive where the heavy iron gate hasn't just rusted, it's actively surrendered to this cold anti-light bleeding down from the zenith. And kneeling in the dust behind these jagged bars, with a haggard face completely mapped by lines, is our tragic protagonist, the Lore Keeper. He's this desperate witness, a spiritual descendant of Dr. Hess, and he's just frantically scribbling the names of the fallen onto these scorched scrolls.
And this really shows us the depth of his pathetic delusion. The Lore Keeper actually believes he's building this warm lantern of truth against the dark. But the grim reality exposes him as nothing more than a child, drawing shapes in the mud next to a river that dried up a long time ago. He thinks he's preserving meaning, but he's merely playing in the dried-up ruins of existence.
Which brings us to part two, a game of ruined telephone.
The tragedy deepens as the very air around the Lore Keeper becomes brutally, suffocatingly honest. As the gray spirit drifts through the bars like a silver vapor, the ink on his scroll starts to soften, hedge, and buckle. The names he thought were sturdy towers of remembrance, they just peel away like a cheap, fragile layer of paint, revealing absolute blankness.
This isn't just simple forgetting. This is epistemological dissolution, a complete erasure of a history that never truly had a foundation to begin with. It completely exposes language as a desperate human construct. It's like a flimsy net we throw over the Nietzschean void, just hoping it'll catch something real. But spoiler alert, it never does.
Let's move on to part three. Enter the Shadow Bard.
Emerging from the black sludge of the mire comes a figure perfectly suited for this dying world. The Shadow Bard. Now, he doesn't show up to offer comfort. He's there to violently wake the old man up. Speaking with a voice that sounds like stone grinding against stone, he kneels down not to honor the ashes, but to completely strip the ruins of their false essence.
With his silhouette cast upward into the heavens by the star's oppressive anti-light, the bard ruthlessly mocks the old man's failing memory. He sneers, "You cling to these scrolls as if they were lanterns." He's pointing out this pathetic, senile grasping at shadows, forcing the Lore Keeper to see the sheer absurdity of trusting a rotting human mind to outlast the cosmos.
That takes us right into part four, the rotting corpses of ideals.
Here, the bard actively targets the grand narratives we invent to make death palatable. He says, "You call these ideals heroic, but in this freezing point where time begins to bleed, they are merely rotting corpses, assumptions built on sand. Basically, courage and nobility are entirely meaningless in a world that has zero moral anchor."
The bard is forcing the Lore Keeper to stare directly into this stark, Nietzschean reality. Every single sacrifice, every hero's name, was just an assumption built on a collapsing foundation. And debating the absolute futility of human ideals here isn't an act of cruelty. To the bard, it's the ultimate act of clarity. Now let's look at part five, a borrowed silence. This is a really crucial interaction. The Shadow Bard actually reaches his hand directly through the rusted iron gate of the archive. He's not doing it to liberate the old man, but to force him to face the emptiness. We have this massive contrast. On one hand, our human declarations, our supposed sturdy towers of meaning. But on the other hand, the dark truth. It's all just a borrowed silence, a void that inevitably reclaims every whispered word. To the bard, all of humanity's language, memory, and meaning is just a borrowed silence. It's a cheap parlor trick. The cosmic creed is this profound understanding that our stored truth is really nothing more than a temporary, flimsy tent we've erected just to hide the terrifying, crushing quiet of the cosmos.
Which leads us to our final section, part 6, Embracing the Void.
And so, the dissolution is finally complete. The lore keeper physically and spiritually just breaks. He drops to his knees, weeping, clutching this completely blank vellum to his chest, in total despair as his history vanishes. And the Shadow Bard? He merely laughs at the pain because he recognizes this as a totally necessary stage of stripping away our linguistic delusions.
This agony, this crushing realization of meaninglessness is absolutely required. It's a stripping away of the emptiness you mistake for a soul, preparing you for the return to the primordial silence from which all our pathetic language was originally borrowed. We are quite literally just giving the silence back.
So the ultimate takeaway is this: the lore keeper isn't trapped by the rusted, jagged iron gate of the physical archive. Not at all. He's trapped by his own desperate, stubborn refusal to accept the truth of the void. He is imprisoned by his belief that meaning is real, rather than just a fragile human construct.
As we wrap up this explainer of the Dark Archive, I want to leave you with a question to gnaw on in the quiet hours. What fragile layer of paint do you use to hide your own primordial silence? What blank vellum are you frantically scribbling on right now to hide the emptiness you mistake for a soul? Think about the sturdy towers you've built in your own life and ask yourself how quickly the ink would fade if the air around you became truly honest. Thanks for joining me on this grim journey.